And now we should be going live. It says we're live. I don't see an image.
Well, give me a sec. Give it a second. It always takes
You got some lag.
I'm a little concernicus.
Well, that's a dead series.
You sound mega high.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Baggins
Well done. Well done. Well done, Baggins. Well done. I'm not seeing it live yet.
There we go. Now it just kicked in for me.
There we go.
All right.
Got it.
Oh,
I've
there we
already
go.
posted part 2 in the in the main stuff.
Thanks.
So
All right.
I am a helper.
So, right. Well, before technology tried to take us down, or maybe a big dead game, as Kamizite theorized, Kamizite, you proposed an idea that we should discuss.
Well, I mean, like, we're talking about dead games here, so let's talk about what defines a dead game. You were talking about it in part 1. You know, a lot of these games that we're talking about, like the head of the game, the mastermind, just got up and left for whatever reason.
Yeah, they're intrinsically connected. And
They're intrinsically connected. And I mean, what bigger falling out have we seen in the last couple of years than Konami and Hideo Kojima from the Metal Gear Solid series?
I'm not familiar with that situation.
Apparently, they were holding him hostage at one point and keeping him like in studio, and some people were saying like it was very weird. Like this all goes down to like a few years back. Like there was like this really weird segment in the Video Game Awards where like the host was just like sitting there, like, you know, we wanted to like present someone with an award for a lifetime achievement, but their company wouldn't let them, and we just asked tonight that you all recognize and spam. You all know who this is to recognize that he should be here tonight, enjoying the fruits of his labor and his hard work. And we know who you are. And it turned out they were talking about Hideo Kojima, who had apparently been held hostage at Konami headquarters to get the latest Metal Gear Solid out.
I hadn't heard that story. That's crazy.
Same. I hadn't heard that.
Like, I mean, that's the most extreme part of the story, and there's a whole lot of, like, you know, embellishment, I'm sure. But basically, what the basics of the story was is that Kojima wasn't really happy with where the series was going. He wanted to stop. Konami was, no, you have a contractual obligation to us. The Video Game Awards approached Konami and said, we would like to present Kojima with a Lifetime Achievement Award because, I mean, he's Hideo Kojima. Like, come on. And they're like, pass. So, like, what do you mean, pass? Like, you've got a game coming out. Like, what? This is good press. And they're like, yeah, we don't love that for him. And, like, it just blew everyone's mind. And for those who keep track, the next year, when he was out of his contract, they gave him the award. And there was all this fanfare for it and everything. And that's when we got Death Stranding and Norman Reedus and Guillermo del Toro and babies in Black Ooze or whatever was going on there. But back to the original question. Is there a Metal Gear Solid without Kojima?
So I guess to answer your question is, I feel like it hasn't been long enough to officially declare it dead, but I'd say it's kind of like when an emergency response team, like a paramedic, shows up at a scene of an accident, and the person is clearly dead, but they're not allowed to officially declare them dead yet until they've actually like taken the pulse and whatnot. So I would say the formality to declare it dead hasn't happened yet, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say it's dead.
Yeah, I would say missing in action. They haven't found the body though.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it just feels like that this is just to bring it back to the point that Lunarsar was making. Like, this is just the formality of the of Metal Gear Solid Breath of Fire 6 needs to come out before it. But I mean, like, do you even do it at that point? Like, will the fans accept a Metal Gear Solid Because didn't they try and do like a game, like a mobile game, and that didn't go over very well, and they've shut down those servers or something?
But I remember something.
Like I remember
sure
hearing that the game was just that the game was just basically just like a zombie shooter with Metal Gear Solid like skin over it, and
oh right,
and
yes.
like I mean, but like, what do you? How do you make a case that this series is not dead? I know formalities, etc., but can you honestly say, for those of you who, and I don't know if any of you are fans, for any of you who are fans of the Metal Gear Solid series, is it Metal Gear Solid without Kojima? Is there honestly a path forward without him?
I personally say no.
Probably not. I would say most likely not. I mean, I don't want to preclude the possibility that there is some super fan that really gets it, but that happens
how often
so
does it?
rarely.
Yeah. I'm trying to think,
So
when
rarely.
has it happened?
Because like I don't think there could be a Smash without Sakurai. You know,
See, that's the one series I actually think it could. But
you think it could?
Fighting games,
But-
I think, are in a different class than something as creative as something with storylines.
It's a narrative, and when somebody hasn't, like, we've seen so many situations where the narrative was passed on to someone else, and it just loses something. Period.
I mean, like to use a metaphor, to use a musical metaphor here, like it's very hard to end up in the Judas Priest, where you fire your lead singer and you end up with a new lead singer who sounds exactly like the old one, and it's just much more agreeable.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that's not something that happens every day, and quite frankly, I mean, could you find somebody that is as weird as Kojima? Sure. And does Kojima totally give off those tortured artist, nobody understands me vibes?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, you know, finding somebody who's easier to work with him is probably not hard. But, like, you could also go and say it's because he has that eye to detail and he's just so completely focused and dialed into the material that he's going out. You know, you'll know the difference.
There's something to be said for someone who does have a full creative vision.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I just think that there are few situations where passing a narrative to someone else works. Like the only example I can think of where it really did work was Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan, and even that has its critics.
Well,
and the only reason that worked is because Brandon was working with
notes.
all of the tools that Robert Jordan had at his hand, because he had detailed, copious notes to go through. He had Harriet, who was Robert Jordan's editor. He had his two assistants to work with. And so, like, he had the entire team backing him up, as well as, and including Robert Jordan himself, because he knew he was not going to survive. And so he was putting all of his stuff together. So this was a massive effort where everyone was cooperating to make it happen. With Kojima, for example, Kojima is not on good terms with Konami. He's not going to work with them to make it work.
No.
And so he's not just passing off his vision.
Also, Brandon Sanderson has rogue powers except for writers. So just keep that in mind as well. He can just touch them and just absorb their writing style. That's a fact.
X-Men rogue. I was like, rogue powers.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I still didn't get it until you said X-Men.
I mean, like you're 100% right. And even withstanding that, who do you get? Like Guillermo del Toro, who's like his best friend, like I would say is somebody who could probably match the weird. But
then.
But like it's a different weird though entirely.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, goodness, Kojima's like. I mean, think about like Metal Gear Solid 2, where he's like, you know what? I'm gonna predict the world's problems that are gonna happen 20 years from now, and be right. Like, it's. I don't know. I don't think you can replace Kojima. I just don't really think you can.
Well, and again, this is it. Metal Gear Solid is a very different situation, because like some of it's Kojima really does have the spot of author in those games. A lot of them are, they're collaborations and everything, but Kojima, like, his identity is woven through it.
Absolutely. No, 100%, which is why I say, like, in that particular case, like, he's not with Konami anymore. Like, anything that they put out is destined to fail.
Well,
Justice.
I've said this about a lot of quote sequels that have come out lately, and it's glorified fan fiction.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with glorified fan fiction, but it's not. But they're
I think
real
there
thing.
can be.
Well, I mean, while we're still, talking Konami, I mean, I kind of feel they're in the same boat with Castlevania. Like, I don't think they can continue Castlevania without Iga.
I'm down as familiar, so you'll have to fill me in.
So Iga left Konami, and I'm not sure if it was as how bad of terms it was. I'm not sure, but I know he wanted more creative control. I mean, I think ultimately he wanted to form his own company and just kind of get out from, being under the thumb of Konami. And so he left, and he made his own company, and he's now making the Bloodstain games, right? And it's basically he's making Castlevania, but he had to make
I didn't realize it was
different.
a former Konami person making the Bloodstained games.
Oh no, it was the Castlevania guy, at least specifically the Metroidvania Castlevania guy, the guy that was the director on all the Metroidvanias Castlevania games. He was the one who formed his own company to make Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and I actually think he succeeded. So, in a way, Castlevania's dead, but I absolutely loved Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. So, I guess what I want, the spiritual successor, is there, and I think it is working, but it's because it's not Konami. And I don't think Konami could succeed in making a new Castlevania, Metroidvania without him. I don't know. I mean, we have to find out.
That begs the question, does a spiritual successor keep the franchise alive?
I think in the case of Bloodstained, maybe.
Okay.
I think it depends upon the quality of the spiritual successor. Because
I don't feel like Xenoblade Chronicles is really counts as a successor as keeping Xenogears alive, because the gameplay is completely different, but it's still alive and thriving. Whereas Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is very much, it is Castlevania. It is a Metroidvania.
It kind of feels like the whole the artist formerly known as Prince. Because he left his publisher, and the reason he changed to the artist formerly known as Prince is because they owned the rights to the name Prince.
Yeah.
I remember thinking it was like when I first heard about it, I thought it was just some artistic, I am super special, but I was like, no, this is an actual rights battle, and him just sort of calling him out. And and so but he continued to make music under that name because he didn't have the rights to the previous name, but it was still him making the same music. And so with this Castlevania, from what it sounds like to me, again, I'm not familiar with the situation. It sounds like it's like, okay, I don't own Castlevania, but I'm just going to keep making my games. I just can't call it Castlevania anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And he made the main character female instead of male, but...
Well, I mean, that's a legacy series anyway.
Yeah.
So then to kind of bring something from warm-up, from the pre-cook...
No, I guess some of the Castlevania starred women too, like
Baggins. So spiritual successors can keep it alive. Would you say? Because we were talking about whether or not Chrono Trigger is a series that should be on that we should talk about to see if stars keep it going. Because I mean, it's very much spiritual successor one to the other.
Yeah, but Sea of Stars is 100% a fan project.
So it would fall into the fan fiction-y kind of area for you.
I wouldn't even call it fan fiction. I would say this is an inspired by. It's its own thing.
So we're in a Stephanie Meyer's Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey kind of deal.
I'm sure he's happy that that's the comparison.
50 Shades of Grey was originally started its life as a Twilight fan fiction, and then somebody said, "Hey, this is really good. You should think about publishing it," and so they changed all of it so that it could be original content.
Like,
no, I'm not joking. That's not a bit.
No. You're right. I'm just like, I just think it's a. I just don't like making that comparison.
But I mean, is it the wrong comparison?
Your point is valid. You make a valid point. Yes, it's because it is.
Oh no, I made Maddie
different.
Swale in chat. Sorry, Maddie. But no, that was kind of my point. Like, when we start getting into spiritual successors, that's where like this whole dead game gets kind of murky, because then like where is the line exactly with it? You know what I'm saying?
And again, I think what Splice said really makes sense. Though, is it depends on the quality of the spiritual successor.
Well, yeah, because as I see Mithril brings up in the chat, it's like Iga was successful in breaking off, forming his own company, and as he put it, filing off the name and making a new Castlevania. But when Inafune did the same thing with Mega Man, it didn't work out at all.
Like,
totally fair.
But like, okay, what I would say, with the comparison I would make is Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is a spiritual successor to Harvest Moon, which has gone through its own, like Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons. That's its own whole situation. And he went in and he said, I want to make a game like the earlier ones that I enjoy playing. And so he does, and it has become its own thing.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, I do think... I think you're right. That inspired by Love Letter 2 is a more accurate description of Sea of Stars for Chrono Trigger. I think you're right. I think the comparison to Stardew Valley is probably much better. I don't know. I don't know if Sea of Stars is so good that it could surpass Chrono Trigger in the way that a lot of people feel that Stardew Valley has surpassed Harvest Moon.
Well, and the thing is, Sea of Stars is actually the second entry in its own series. And that's an interesting concept in and of itself, because the first game, The Messenger, Sea of Stars is a prequel to, but it's a completely different genre of game, because The Messenger was like a Ninja Gaiden inspired game, and Sea of Stars is an RPG. And if you've played Sea of Stars and you haven't played The Messenger, you need to go play The Messenger. I love that game.
I'm playing through Sea of Stars, so one before the other kind of deal. I mean, like, all those are really good points, but veering off in another direction, if we don't have anything for the spiritual successor part of the discussion,
keep it going.
What about games that are game franchises that are dead but have surpassed being a game franchise? And of course, I'm talking about Twisted Metal, which was a raucous mobile demolition derby game that just kind of fell off at one point, and then now has gotten new life on Peacock as a show with Anthony Mackie and Stephanie Beatrix and Will Arnett as the voice of Sweet Tooth and Samoa Joe as the body of Sweet Tooth. And
wait! Samoa Joe's Sweet Tooth?
Well, so the way they do it in the show is that Sweet Tooth has a certain kind of physicality in it, and so they got Samoa Joe, this big wrestler, to wear a clown mask with the red thing on it, and he wears the mask so it completely obstructs his face. You only see his eyes, and he's like you can see he's a big dude, and then Will Arnett does all of the lines. Which, side tangent here on that, I have watched Samoa Joe for years, and he can be funny, and he can be serious, and he can be scary. Samoa Joe is single-handedly responsible for the most frightening promo I have ever seen in a wrestling ring. So I feel like he could have done like all of it for Sweet Tooth. I feel like he could have been the voice. I feel like he could have done the physicality and all of that really well. I don't really feel like we needed Will Arnett on there. Just Will Arnett is a big comedic name, so let's put it on there. Yay, kind of deal. But yeah, Samoa Joe is the body of Sweet Tooth, and yeah,
I did not know that.
I'm watching through it right now. I'm about halfway through the series, and it's like so far. I mean, it's Twisted Metal. It's pretty something, but like yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. It's a lot of stuff. Like it's fantastic, you know. And I could see this maybe resurrecting the game series, except I don't see really anyone into that kind of a game anymore, because anyone who's doing those kind of games is playing Rocket League.
Yeah, the vehicular combat isn't really something that is popular nowadays.
And
just Mario Kart 8 at this point.
And that's not vehicular combat, because Twisted Metal was not a racing game at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was only combat.
Okay, only combat.
It's closer to like you said, Rocket.
It's a Demolition Derby.
Yeah, but
it is what it is.
It's a bizarre standalone title that I do wonder, like, does it only successfully exist in the, you know, the extreme Nitro era of the 90s?
Yeah, maybe.
Mithril in chat makes a good point. If you know, talking about dead genres, that's a whole other episode we could probably have.
Yeah.
Right, totally. But I mean, like I'm looking it up right now as we're talking. The last Twisted Metal game was released in 2012.
Yep.
So I mean, like a full 12 years ago, it was the last game released, and like that's dead. It's gone. There is no coming back for the series, because I don't see a way that this comes back in any way that's satisfying. And I just, in the market where it is, like a game like this, if it were to come back right now, you have to think it's gonna be chocked to the brim with microtransactions. They'd probably set it up like a fighting game. You have a season pass where you get some of the stuff. Sweet Tooth is an extra that you have to pay for with some skins on it. Like, nobody wants that, and it's not gonna bring the genre back. It's just like, but it's a big deal. Like right now, there's filming season 2, so like. It did well enough to get a second season.
That's interesting.
And you know, kind of the other part about this, and this is just a personal story. One of the reasons why this came up was I have this story that my little brother, when he was in school, and to give you guys an idea, there's about 15 years difference between me and my little brother. When he was in first grade, like he would get like marks from notes from his teacher home. It's like, wow, we're so impressed with Riker. Like he knows like all his geography. He knows it well. Yeah, because he's blowing up the Eiffel Tower in Twisted Metal. That's how he knows where Paris is. Yeah, he knows Big Ben because like he's running into it with Sweet Tooth's ice cream truck. You know, so I always found that hilarious.
Well, yeah.
Well,
the way to get around it.
I guess in that case, that even though the series is dead, it does still have some life in it.
Yeah. Well, it's because but the very concept of it is so bizarre and out there that if you just sort of give into the concept, on like the Borderlands movie, you can absolutely make something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. Now, as Lizzie points out, you already mentioned Banjo-Kazooie right at the beginning, but yeah, it did get, it was its creator that, the original Banjo-Kazooie creator that made Yooka-Laylee, right? Or was it just,
they did.
Oh, it was?
It wasn't the exact, it was a lot of the same people. It's not the exact same people.
But it was pretty good.
It was a ton of the rare people. The issue for me with Yooka-Laylee is that it feels more like Banjo-Tooie to me, which to me was a step back.
Okay.
Where it's just, it's too massive type of thing. I don't know. That's obviously that's just, you know, like your opinion, man, type of stuff. But it is my opinion, man. but no, the yeah, it's just a whole issue with whenever you make a game that is a collectathon, it's a weird balancing act you have to do because you have to have the collectathon, but you can also go overboard with it as well. And so, I don't know. I feel like they went overboard with it. Maybe that's just me, though.
I mean, that sounds totally fair. So, you know, that also brings up another good point. When do you call a game? Like, when do you say it's dead? Like, when is it like, you know, all right, time of death is 2345, August 28th, 2024. Go ahead and put that in the chart.
Well, here's my thing, and I'm always going to say this. I don't think any game series is ever truly dead, because all it takes is one creative who gets it, that somehow gets a hold of the property through, because you know what? Here's the best example of a game series that was absolutely dead and is alive again, but might also be dead again. XCOM.
That's where I was going with this.
Yeah. Okay.
Because XCOM was completely dead. And what's interesting is this new era of XCOM, Enemy Unknown through XCOM 2. It's interesting because there's a lot of those old school XCOM fans that just are not a fan of this new direction of XCOM. And I get it. It's a more simplified and it's not as crunchy, I'd say, as the previous XCOM. But this new form of XCOM brought a bunch of people into a genre that had kind of died. This 4X tactical, and XCOM's, oh man, you ever want to go? There's a video called by Ahoy that's just the history of XCOM that is so good, because XCOM is a series they tried to port into like 5 different genres, and it always failed, with the exception of like the original XCOM. But what's interesting is because of the success of Enemy Unknown and XCOM 2, the old school XCOM has sort of had a resurgence. There's a series called Xenonauts that is 100% in the vein of the original XCOM, and it's doing well. And at the same time, I think it might be dead again because Jake Solomon, the guy who was in charge of that revival, he has since left Firaxis, and I have my doubts because we've seen the first game since he left, and I gotta say, not impressed with the Chimera Squad. Some people like it.
No, that's a lie. You loved Chimera Squad. You had hearts and a collage.
Yes. And so it's just one of those things that I sit there and say, I think it's dead again. But like I said, there's always some creative with enough love and an understanding of the current player base that can resurrect anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? Another good example of that is out of nowhere, F-Zero 99. Like there's a whole generation of players that had never played anything like F-Zero, and they got a hold of F-Zero 99, and they're like, "Oh, this is kind of fun. They should make another game of this."
Well, yeah, who knows? Maybe with F-Zero 99 we might see a
I
return.
can only hope.
Yeah, no. Another game that I plan to talk about tonight, I don't think it'd come back because I'm looking at the history of it, and it'd be very difficult for it to come back just because of ownership limbo, you know.
That being
Wild Arms.
What's the ownership situation?
So Wild Arms is a Sony-owned property that was developed by MediaVision, right? And so all the 5 mainline games and the remake and the spin-off game for the PSP, all of those are published by Sony and developed with a couple other teams helping them on occasion, but by MediaVision. And what MediaVision is currently known for is Valkyria Chronicles through Sega. So right now, MediaVision is acting as I don't know if it's a full-on subsidiary, but it's currently working with Sega and doing the Valkyria Chronicles games, even though I guess Valkyria Chronicles 4 came out 6 years ago, so they actually haven't developed a whole lot.
Isn't there another one coming out soon, or am I making that up?
It seems like there is an upcoming game by this team called the 100 Line Last Defense Academy, but
Sure.
but I mean that 7-year gap between Valkyria Chronicles 4 and their next game. Wow, that's crazy. But because Sony owns the rights to Wild Arms as the publisher, and they're not their current publisher, they can't really make another game unless the rights got moved to Sega. So Sega would have to buy the rights to Wild Arms to make another game, as far as I can tell. So I don't know. I actually really enjoyed Wild Arms. The first game, I played that through many times. It's just a really fun game. Though I will admit, part of me's not like too torn up about Wild Arms because I actually haven't finished all of the games that I have of it.
Okay, this is a thing I've never been quite sure. What genre would you call Wild Arms? Fantasy Western?
Yeah, it's a
Story genre, yeah, fantasy western.
That
Yeah,
is a bizarre.
It almost
fusion.
feels like It almost feels like, and not having played a game, like feel free to shoot me down here. It always felt like to me like the precursor to steampunk.
Oh yeah, it's totally. I mean, it went for a
Like
spaghetti
Steampunk
western
4 was
feel.
steampunk.
like spaghetti western movies. So like the Wild Wild West movies that were based off of the old samurai movies. That's the feel they were going for when they developed this game. So like the
Okay,
main character
wow,
uses guns.
That is some cultural blender if I've ever heard it. Based off the westerns, based off Japanese.
Well, yeah,
The
spaghetti
Japanese
western.
samurai
That's what
movies
those westerns
based-
were based off of.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so it just comes full circle. It's a Japanese game based on a western thing that's based on a Japanese genre.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Like the bandit with no name is a samurai, 100%.
Street
Well,
Fighter 2, the game, the movie, the game.
Yes.
Well, I mean, when you think about anime was their own based off of the Disney style. Like that was their take on the Disney style is what is now the current anime style. So, I mean, yeah, the blending of the cultures is a real thing. But yeah, this it's gone full circle. But I love how they do it. Like all the music is like Wild Wild West spaghetti western
A lot of whistling.
music theme, and a lot of whistling, and it's
Lots of
great.
whistling.
It's great. I love the setting. I love the gameplay. It kind of had the puzzle aspect of it. So, I mean, in a way, yeah, it's like an RPG puzzler in the way that Lufia 2 was. And so it's like a spiritual successor to Lufia 2 while being a spaghetti western that's kind of a precursor of steampunk. And, yeah, being a western RPG that's fantasy and sci-fi with guns and... I don't know. It's all over the place, but it was really well done.
This sounds like it needs a spiritual successor. Then
I do not have
Oh, yeah.
rum
It
to
could
process
use it.
everything you just said.
Oh goodness, it's great. The second game is I actually haven't finished all the games I own of it because the second game I was just noticing that it's referred to as the black sheep of the family, and I wouldn't be surprised. I've played a bit of the fourth one. But then I said, I have this problem where I say, I want to finish them in sequential order. And so I stopped playing 4 to play through 2. And then I stopped playing 2 because I don't know, kind of lost interest in a little while. I really should get back to finishing it. But man, the first game is still one of my all-time favorite PlayStation RPGs. And the graphical remake they made on the PS2, it was a remake of the first game, was really well done. Just, yeah. But after the fifth one, and the PSP spinoff, it's done because they're working with Sega instead of Sony now.
So I have a totally real and not contrived question. Can we get Will Smith and Kevin Kline on a Wild Arms movie?
Wild Arms.
What you want?
Wild Arms.
I think we could bring it back. I think we could Twisted Metal this, guys. We can get this back. I'm sure that somebody here can somehow get in touch with at least Kevin Kline. Like, what's he been doing lately? Like, nothing.
Well, I think it'd be more likely. Well, I don't know. When you think about it, the only other Japanese property that kind of has this same aesthetic to it is Trigun, and that did get a new
adaptation.
I didn't really. I watched a couple episodes. I didn't care for it.
Anime right now, like all of the old animes. Like I always go back to like a couple of years ago where I saw on a Facebook page where like somebody was saying like if you are into this kind of anime, you're like a current generation. If you're kind of into this kind of anime, you're like an elder. Like if you're into, and I think it was like Naruto and Bleach, like you're an ancient anime fan. And I'm sitting here like, man, I remember Yatsura and Cowboy Bebop. Where do I fall on this? Like
I was a fan of Robotech.
You're dead. That's where you fall in on the chart.
I remember Megazone 23, which is functionally the first anime that crossed over to the United States.
But, oh man, because I remember Dragon Ball Z,
right?
Sailor Moon, Trigun, Cowboy Bebop, and Yu Yu Hakusho, man.
You know, and Trigun got a revival. I mean, even though we don't really count it, Cowboy Bebop got a revival on Netflix, but we're not going to talk about that. I've been tormented enough. And Ranma and a Half has just been announced that they're doing a new series on it. That seems like it's the thing with anime right now. It's just like let's bring back the ancient. There's been enough time. It's been almost 40 to 50 years.
Well, and what it is people who were fans of it being like, I really liked it, but they had no animation budget back then. Could we get these guys some animation budget?
That's fair. That's totally fair. 100%.
But, you know, like with a lot of things that get remade, it's hit or miss how well it's done. But, you know, I at least with something like that, I'm cool with it just because the old stuff is still there. And at least with anime, they tend to be more faithful than when they bring it over here to the States and you get some Hollywood hotshots like, no, we gotta fix it for the American audience. And it's like, the reason you bought it was because it had a built-in audience. Why are you wanting to change it?
It's like the American audience wants it because of what it already is. Stop messing with it.
But how are they going to ruin this if they don't do that?
I mean, it all depends. Like apparently right now there's a big like fight in like the not even the subtitles, the captioning community as to our captioners putting their own spin on it. And the answer is no, they're not putting their own spin on it. They're putting a script they were given from corporate, but apparently that's a big fight that's been going on. And we are way off topic now. But I mean, that's just a thing. But pulling it back on the topic, what about series that you could almost be considered never was, that maybe just barely kind of sort of scraped by that it was a franchise because there was 2 games in it and then just kind of fell off? And the 2 that I have that I put well, I mean, like Banjo-Kazooie is one of them, but the 2 that I put in there were one, Prototype, which probably a lot more people are more familiar with because it had a fairly big hype train for both the first and the second one, and Rival Schools, which was big in the fighting community. If you were into Dreamcast and or I think PlayStation 1 had a release of Rival Schools, and like if you wanted Project Justice, which is Rival Schools 2, you had to get it imported. There may have been a release later on, I don't know. But
there is one coming out now.
Well, yeah, like now there is, but I mean, like I remember, with my friend Jake, that was one of the things in our fighting game rotation, and we were just crappy at it. But we would just like we'd go get Japanese food, and Sunday morning we'd go back to his house, and then we'd just go through the rotation of games while watching anime in the background, and just Rival Schools was always on there because I mean, what's better than being in a school and just punching it out? And Prototype, which was its own thing, which you start off and it had this really cool kind of superhero-y. Like, if you remember, it was in the style of games that kind of like the Incredible Hulk was, where you like, it's a single action, but you start powering yourself up. It's one of those type of games. And then the second one, like, switched to a totally different character, but kind of with the same thing. I remember them being well received. I remember both of them having a pretty decent following.
The one that comes to my mind is Infamous.
Oh,
yeah.
Those were some good games.
They were.
Well, there's only two of them,
didn't
right?
Last long.
No, there's
three. Yeah.
Okay.
Second Son
I
Second
don't
Son.
think the third one was as good as the first two. I feel like it was 1 and 2, and then 3 was kind of like another one of those you've ruined the series, and you've let us down for the last time kind of situation.
I don't know. I really enjoyed the third one. I mean,
I only played the first two.
I'd probably say the first two were better, but it was still plenty good. And its marketing, I wonder if they just blew too much money on the marketing campaign for the third one, because they went whole hog where, like, they had websites and phone numbers and puzzles and riddles, and they went the whole like augmented reality, dig through their stuff to pull out clues. Like, they spent a whole lot on their marketing of that third game. I just wonder if they just blew too much money on it. I think it was a fun game. I really enjoyed it. But I mean, there hasn't been one in a while.
All of these are, and I mean, like for Project Justice / Rival Schools, you see those characters turn up in like Capcom versus anything. Like, some of them will show up, and like you'll see them like tangentially sometimes show up in some of the mainstream games as an off here. Technically, Sakura and one of the main characters, whose name escapes me at the moment, are schoolmates, and they know each other, and so they've crossed over and they've shown up in some of the series as well. But I mean, like, again, like, I remember it being cool, and like it was a part of the big fighting game boom there. But it just, again, this is a never was. Can you really say that it's a dead franchise if it was only big, like, in very, very, very certain circles?
Well, two things on that. One, fighting games as a genre, I feel, always sort of have there's only a certain amount of people who enjoy that. And so I think it's one of those things where that's a risky move to come out with a new fighting game when Street Fighter and Smash and Mortal Kombat sort of eat up a lot of the air for that. The other thing,
while that's true, though,
I don't know.
Smash was a new fighting game.
Yes.
Of that style.
I don't know. Arc System Works, they have their audience. Like, I bought the Blaze Blues. I think Blaze Blue's done now.
Yeah, I'm not
them.
I'm not saying that it's there's no such thing as like what I'm just saying is everything always depends upon how much resources you're putting behind it. Like you were talking about with Infamous.
And you have to get something to capture those, to pull those people away from the tent poles. And at this point, anything short of a group, or whoever wants to invade the space, pulling a Larian probably won't happen. Where they say, you pay us money, you get a full game. Here you get no season pass. We're not going to try and nickel and dime you for costumes. We're not going to try and do this and the other. Here's the whole game right here. All of it. Story mode, versus mode, online mode, all of it. Here you go. You pay us one price, you get a whole game. And if they did that, I guarantee you people will be like, well, yeah, I'll have some of that, please. But, like, who's going to do that? Because, like, I think the last time that I looked at what was it? Dead or Alive. That was it. The last time I looked at a Dead or Alive game, which was 4 years ago. Like, there was a game that was going to come out, might have been even longer than that. And I remember looking at it, and I looked at the pre-order stuff of all the season passes and extra characters and extra game. And the game was $59.99. And all of the extras came out to $450 dollars. And I'm just like, yeah, this genre's passed me by. I can't do this anymore.
Well,
like,
I actually think that's a problem a lot of companies have created where...
$100.
Like, for example, like even like the Blaze Blue games, it's like, oh, I could buy the new game, or I could wait until the anniversary collection version, whatever, limited, whatever they call them, the edition that comes out like
the Ultimate Edition.
Yeah, the Ultimate Edition that comes, that's cheaper than the base game. The complete edition that has all the DLC that would have cost $400 is on cartridge, and you just wait for that. I mean, as much as I love Disgaea, it's in that situation. I haven't bought Disgaea 7 because I've learned at this point, I'm just going to wait till Disgaea 7 Complete comes out, and then I'll buy it. And the thing is, if you do that too much, you'll get to the point where people won't buy the original game. It's like, I'm at that point with NIS. I'm just going to wait till you come out with the complete version before I buy your game.
I just won't even buy those games. Like, the last fighting game I think that I bought was Skullgirls, because I thought it was kind of a cute concept. And the last game that I actually ended up getting was Street Fighter 4 or 5, one of them. And I got it for free out of a loot box. Or out of a loot crate. That's what it's called. Because it was just like, hey, we don't really have anything special tonight, so have Street Fighter 4. With all the downloads. Have fun with that. Yay, you got a loot box you got a game instead of a shirt. Huzzah. So, yeah, I mean, like, just because, like, why would I give you money when you, even for the complete edition? Like, why am I going to stand behind that in any shape or form? I'm a very, that's why I don't buy Madden games. That's why I don't buy sports games in particular, because just the erosion of features, I'm convinced it's why Baldur's Gate 3 did so well and why Larian is going to be a very successful studio if they stick to these principles. The CEO has said, it's like, yeah, I could have sold out, but
yeah, I mean,
I got stuff to do.
It all comes down to quality at a certain point.
True.
Because like you're talking about all the stuff with DLC and stuff, I have no issue paying for it with Smash because Smash just keeps, measuring up to what I want, and so I don't mind it. I didn't have issues, paying for a loot crate or two with Overwatch originally, or with TF2, the original loot box, buying keys and stuff, because I was having a really good time. And it's when you stop having that really good time that all these issues become issues. Like, let's not get it twisted, like with Blizzard and stuff. Like, yeah, there was all that creepy stuff going on in their offices, but people weren't boycotting the games really until they were kind of fed up with just the quality of the game.
Blizzard did a lot.
They did, but
you could do a case study on how to burn goodwill as fast as possible.
Yeah,
and Blizzard would be like chapter 1.
But the thing is, Blizzard had built up a lot of goodwill to burn.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is, at the end, most gamers aren't looking and seeing, all right, what's this company's, corporate stance on this? How have they behaved? Most people are just sitting there saying to themselves, oh, the new game coming out, does it look good or not? And if you don't put out quality, that's what's going to be the problem. And all your little models that you come with, how you monetize and stuff, if the game isn't good enough, it won't work. And that's the big thing. I think a lot of the suits especially just don't seem to understand, is because they want to, like, a game to them is a black box. they don't understand how, the whole sausage gets made. That's not their job. They're the suit. And they look and they say, wow, this black box that had this type of monetization did really well. Why aren't we doing more of that? And the answer is, well, there's a reason for that monetization for this style of game, but we don't want to do it for every single style of game. To which the suit says, that doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't we? And the answer is because these are different things. Then, like you said with Larian, they just put out a good game with a lot of content, and people are like, holy crap, this is a really good game with a lot of content. And they paid the price. And then Ubisoft is like, no, we got Skull and Bones, quadruple A. And it's like, maybe you paid for it at that level, but that doesn't make it good. It's not the gamer's job to subsidize your poor decision making.
But Ubisoft is also the group that was sitting there. It's like gamers have to be comfortable with not owning their games, and we could do and that's not to start us on a whole nother tangent, because we could do another entire show on studios and developers who had all the goodwill in the world and had burned through it like nothing in the last 10 years. Like we probably fill up 2 shows with that. But I mean, maybe, and I'm not suggesting this like for everything, but one of the big problems right now in the tabletop space with Dungeons and Dragons is that we have somebody who's effectively in charge of Dungeons and Dragons who came from the MMO space and is trying to monetize everything. And they keep coming up against the fans, and the fans keep going, no, if I wanted to be nickel and dime, I'd go play a crappy video game. That's not how this works. Stop trying to sell me your stupid virtual tabletop. Stop trying to take my content, because that's the big thing right now. D&D Beyond is preparing for the 2024 rules, which is not 6th edition, it's 5th edition 2024, and they updated all of the spells and magical items for the new rule set, leaving all of us who have all of this 2004 content and are still playing off of the 2014 content with spells that don't work. And they got really surprised when we were like, why isn't this working? Why is this all of a sudden giving me inaccurate information? Oh, well, we're just going to update everything for you. And like, if you want to use like the old spells or like the stuff, you can go through Homebrew and you can put it in yourself and use it that way.
What are you talking about? The most recent edition is 3.5 from 2000.
No, the funny thing about that is like they've tried this whole moving towards MMOs thing in a much less abrasive way, and it didn't go over well, because when fourth edition came out, the rule set was changed to be very much more play like an MMO, and people rejected it hard.
Okay. That's the thing. I don't remember you rejecting it. You were saying I defend
4th edition. I like 4th edition.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying they tried to do this already and it didn't go well for them.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't.
This is a very different conversation, but D&D is the whole concept of we're making a new edition. The problem is the leadership keeps thinking of it as, how do we get everyone to move to that, rather than this is a new rule set, that it's just another version of the game and we can still monetize different versions. They just don't seem to understand that concept. They want to put all their eggs in one basket.
On this part of the basket, like this was a big thing over the last week. And then on Sunday they were finally like, our bad, guys. I'm sorry. We didn't realize that you guys were going to think this is so different. And you were going to think this is such a big deal. We thought you'd be excited. It's like, why? Like, you're basically just saying that in 10 years, when you go to a new edition, all of the money that we've invested before is useless. So why are we going to start investing again in the platform?
Mm-hmm.
Like I straight up in this whole big mega thread that they had on their thing. It's like sitting there. It's like, all you're telling me is that if I invest more money in this, I'm just throwing it away 10 years down the line. So why sell me? Why am I doing this now? If this isn't going to be usable. And
it's one of those things. It worked once. And they're like, "Ooh, let's keep doing that." And they're just like, "We don't like this."
Except it hasn't.
Well, that and-
every time they keep trying to do this over the last 2 years, the fans have overwhelmingly said,
no. I'm
"Well,
not talking.
I've
I'm not
heard a
talking about-
platform."
I'm not talking about the last 2 years. I'm talking about
Right.
because second edition came out, 3.5 did come out and it worked well. And there's like, ooh, we should do that again. And it's just like that worked because it was a completely different situation.
Mhm.
And you're trying to manufacture a situation.
Well, one of the biggest problems with fourth edition, as you stated, because one of the big things with the tabletop thing and versus like you're trying to make this a video game that you can microtransaction. That's not how this works. Going back to fourth edition, one of the biggest problems was it wasn't just the rules change; it was the fact that there was a new book every 2 months. Like there was like
all the
Player's Handbook
supplemental
2
books,
and 3
yeah.
and Adventurer's Vault 3 and like the rule books. I'm not even talking about like the campaign guides, like the rule books just all by themselves. There was like the Martial Handbook 2, the Divine Handbook, the Divine Handbook 2. Primal,
Believe me, I'm aware.
Psionics.
I still own some of those.
I've got a folder somewhere with a PDF of all of the books, and like when you look at it, all of these books, which I think is like 100+ books, came out in like a 2 to 3 year span, and at $40-50 a pop.
Well, like, I mean, I'm just thinking, I knew people, they just dropped like tons and tons of money on all the supplementals for 3.5. I did buy the Spell Compendium because it was pretty awesome, but I'm still, the one that really makes me the most upset was the Song and Silence, the Bard and Thief one.
Mm-hmm.
They should have named it Loots and Loots. Total missed opportunity there.
I like that. Yeah.
I would have said loots and flutes, but just because I get what you're saying because it's the same word, but I think rhymes would have come.
Yeah.
This is a whole different tangent.
But anyways,
we're so far off.
Way off topic. We were talking before we got to this. We were talking about Blizzard. So my question is: do you think StarCraft? Would you consider StarCraft dead at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't actually. I think we should hold off on that discussion because I think
I figured we should
StarCraft.
bring it up since you put it in the thumbnail. But
Yeah, nah, it's fine. The thumbnail could be a lie, and mostly because the more we go into this, the more I realize dead genre is definitely a topic of conversation as well, and the RTS is definitely on life support right now.
Well, dead genre.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once again, we're talking about dead studios, or at least dead goodwill for studios.
Yep.
Well, then again, that one thing you said called Factorio dead an RTS, and it's very much alive. But no, I wouldn't call that an RTS.
Like I said, I just use what's on Wikipedia. But
Well,
it's anyway. The point is, I think I want to save that because it's already pretty late,
Okay.
and we I think
got
there's
at least 3 more shows of content off of this conversation.
exactly. All right, perfect. Well, let's go through everyone. Breakfast. Do you want to promote anything?
I feel like I barely said anything this entire time.
I know you came in to talk Wing Commander, and that never even got brought up.
You guys
huh?
just kept jumping from point to point. I never got a chance to get a word in edgewise.
So I'm sorry. You want to go now?
Promotion, no.
No,
It's too late.
we're going to be doing more of this. This isn't.
Okay.
I got nothing.
All right, Lunasar.
Watch Lizzie.
Just comes in right in and just boom, block Lunasar. Got him.
Got him.
All I know is after you asked me, that's when it came out, man. That's when you said it. Yeah, watch Lizzie.
Just straight up sniped out of nowhere.
Jeez, brutal.
At least she knows she has fans here. We stand Lizzie on this. We think we've overleveled.
But yeah, Lunasar, do you want to promote something that's not Lizzie?
Something that's not Lizzie. Let's see. How about? Oh yeah. Speaking of Factorio, there is an expansion coming out for Factorio next month. It looks pretty cool. you can now travel to 5 different planets, from what I understand. So that'll be fun.
Perfect.
And and Satisfactory gets its leaving early access around the same time too. So, and they will have a story mode. So, yeah, good time for Factorio and Satisfactory fans.
Lunasar only plays games with the word fact in them.
That's a fact.
All right, Commie
Yes, my partner Karina J is in a writing contest over at Tapas. She is writing a story called Entangled Enemies. If you can hear this, I've dropped a link over in the self-promotion section of the Splice Stream Discord. It is on Tapas, and you can search for Entangled Enemies, the name of the show, the name of it. Give it a like, give it a read, give it a comment. I know that she's enjoying writing it this time and not having to write 30 chapters in 30 days. She is up to episode 7 right now. So check that out. Do your old pal Kami a favor. Or, I don't know, I might, appear in a mirror in your house. Yeah.
He'll do it.
So if we say Kamizite 3 times, and
no, it's you have to say my name backwards on a day with a Z in it. When there's a harvest moon, while you're at the 7-Eleven, and you summon me.
Okay.
So on Thursday.
Yes, on Thursday.
All right, Baggins.
I'll promote the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Jordan and I and our friend Amy we spend a lot of time every other week talking about Brandon Sanderson and his Cosmere. We are into major spoiler territory right now, because we're discussing the preview chapters that Brandon has been releasing as we move to the release of Book 5 of the Stormlight Archive, Wind and Truth. And so we've been digging deep into that. We had a guest this last time, though, a guy, his name is, he goes by Cosmere Quandaries. And it was a fun discussion. So definitely check that out if you're a fan of the Cosmere and Brandon Sanderson, etc.
All right. And as always, you can find me on Twitch or Kick, twitch.tv/SpliceStream, SpliceStream everywhere, where we're doing a variety of content, including XCOM. And most importantly, on Saturdays, The Quizzard, my video game trivia show. If you like content like this, you're probably the type of person who would like to play video game trivia. So yeah.
Oh man, guys,